Long before Vermont became known for its quiet towns, rolling green mountains, and independent spirit, it existed as something far more unusual. A sovereign republic. From 1777 to 1791, Vermont functioned as an independent nation, complete with its own constitution, currency, courts, and postal service. It emerged in the chaos of the American Revolution, governed itself with remarkable order, and ultimately joined the United States not as a leftover territory but as a fully formed political entity. The story of the Vermont Republic is a story of resilience, ambition, and a determination to chart its own course when the world around it was being remade. To understand how this small region became a nation, we must start with the land itself. The territory would become Vermont was long contested by powerful neighbors, chiefly New York and New Hampshire. For decades, both colonies claimed authority over the region, issuing competing land grants and drawing settlers into disputes over property rights and legal jurisdiction. Communities found themselves caught between distant governors, conflicting laws, and overlapping claims. As tensions escalated, local settlers began to form their own defensive militias, the most famous of which was the Green Mountain Boys led by Ethan Allen. These groups resisted attempts by New York authorities to enforce their claims, sometimes with open force. The settlers' loyalty to either colony diminished as they realized their interests could not be adequately represented by the government so far, since they were far away. When the American Revolution began, the people of the region saw an opportunity. The colony's struggle against British rule inspired local leaders to assert their own independence from both New York and New Hampshire. In January of 1777, delegates gathered in Westminster to declare the territory an independent republic. They named it New Connecticut at first, but soon adopted the name Vermont, derived from the French Vermont, meaning Green Mountains. With that declaration, Vermont became a self-governing entity, separate not only from Britain but from the emerging United States. One of the most remarkable achievements of the Vermont Republic was its constitution. Adopted in July 1777, it was among the most progressive political documents of its time. It outlawed adult slavery, making Vermont the first place in North America to constitutionally prohibit the practice. It extended voting rights to all men who took an oath of allegiance, regardless of property ownership, at a time when most jurisdictions required voters to meet landholding requirements. It also established public schools and promised protections for freedom of speech and religion. These commitments reflected the values of a frontier society determined to build a government grounded in equity and practical governance rather than privilege. Economically, the young republic faced typical challenges of frontier life, yet it adapted quickly. Lacking access to reliable currency from neighboring states, Vermont issued its own money, including copper coins stamped with symbols of independence such as the plow and the sun rising over mountains. It also created its own postal system, ensuring communication across settlements that were often separated by rugged terrain. Vermont's leaders understood that sovereignty required infrastructure, legal, economic, and administrative, and moved swiftly to establish the institutions necessary for a functioning nation. Despite these advances, Vermont's independence was not recognized by the Continental Congress. New York continued to insist that Vermont belonged within its borders, and its representatives lobbied aggressively to block Vermont's admission to the Union. Congress, wary of fracturing unity during the Revolution, avoided taking sides. As a result, Vermont existed in political limbo, independent in practice, but diplomatically isolated. Yet this isolation also fostered a fierce sense of self-reliance among its citizens. It built the republic without substantial external support, relying on local resources and collective effort. During the Revolutionary War, Vermont played a complicated role. Although not officially part of the United States, it cooperated within the Continental Army and provided soldiers for several key campaigns. Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys became iconic figures for their capture of Fort Ticonderoga, an important early victory, yet Vermont's ambiguous status also prompted delicate negotiations with British authorities in Canada. Fearing invasion and seeking security for their region, some Vermont leaders engaged in secret discussions with British officials about the possibility of rejoining the empire if the American cause failed. These negotiations never materialized into action, but they revealed the strategic uncertainty that defined Vermont's early years. Following the Revolution, Vermont continued to operate independently. developing its laws, courts, and economy with a unique blend of pragmatism and frontier innovation. Its leadership rotated among capable figures including Thomas Chittenden, who served as governor for most of the republic's existence. The government worked to settle land disputes, regulate commerce, and maintain order in a landscape that was still being explored and settled. Despite challenges, Vermont's independence proved surprisingly durable. Its institutions worked efficiently, its citizens supported the republic, and its leaders maintained a stable political environment even without recognition from neighboring states. By the late 1780s, however, national politics were shifting. The creation of the U.S. Constitution and the strengthening of the federal government changed the landscape in which Vermont operated. The newly formed United States sought to bring all territories within a coherent national framework, and Vermont recognized the advantages of joining a stable union. Yet admission required resolving the long-standing land dispute with New York. Years of negotiation finally produced a settlement. Vermont agreed to pay New York monetary compensation to extinguish its territorial claims. This agreement removed the final obstacle to Vermont's statehood. In 1791, after 14 years as an independent republic, Vermont joined the United States as the 14th state, the first new state added after the original 13. It entered the Union not as a struggling territory seeking protection, but as a fully functioning nation with established governance and stable institutions and a cohesive population. Its successful transition from independent republic to statehood stands apart in American history. No other community governed itself as fully or as effectively before choosing to join the United States. The legacy of the Vermont Republic is profound. Though often overlooked, it demonstrated that small, self-governing societies could sustain independence through practical governance, clear values, and shared commitment. Its constitution set precedents for progressive ideals that would later spread across the country. Its economic innovations showed how frontier communities could adapt creatively to limited resources. Moreover, Vermont's 14-year experiment reveals how national borders and identities were far more fluid in the 18th century than they might appear today. The region's transformation from disputed territory to independent nation to U.S. state reflects the dynamic nature of early American political development. It also highlighted the importance of local agency. Vermont's independence was not granted by outside powers, it was asserted from within, built on the determination of settlers who believed they had the right to govern themselves. Today, traces of the Vermont Republic can still be found in the cultural identity of the state. Its emphasis on independence, community, decision-making, and egalitarian values continues to shape its political character. In popular memory, the Vermont Republic has sometimes been overshadowed by larger narratives of American independence and expansion, yet its story offers an essential perspective on what it means to build a nation. It shows that independence is not solely a matter of dramatic battles or sweeping declarations, but of establishing systems that allow people to live securely, resolve disputes, and promote collective welfare. In the end, the Vermont Republic stands as one of America's most successful almost countries. It proved its viability, then chose union not from weakness but confidence. Though the Republic vanished from the map, its principles endure in Vermont's character and in a story of a nation built by determined communities.